My name is Diana Foster, and this is the story of how love found me in the most unexpected way. I grew up in a small house on Maple Street, where the paint peeled a little more each summer and the roof leaked when it rained hard. My parents, good people with calloused hands and worn shoes, worked 2 jobs each just to keep food on our table. We didn't have much, but we had each other. When I turned 23, everything changed. My father came home one evening with an unusual brightness in his tired eyes. He sat me down at our old kitchen table, the one that wobbled unless you put a folded napkin under the left leg. "Diana," he said gently, "we found someone who wants to marry you. His name is Marcus Dalton. He's a good man, a successful man." I felt my stomach drop. "Papa, I don't even know him." My mother took my hand. Her fingers were rough from years of cleaning houses, but her touch was tender. "Sweetheart, Mr. Dalton is willing to help us. He'll pay off our debts. He'll make sure we don't lose the house." That's when I learned the truth. My parents owed more money than I'd imagined. The medical bills from my grandmother's final months, the mortgage payments they'd fallen behind on, the credit cards they'd maxed out just to survive. Marcus Dalton was their way out, and he was blind. I met him a week later at a quiet cafe downtown. I'd expected someone old, perhaps bitter about his disability. Instead, Marcus was 31, with a warm smile and a confidence that surprised me. He wore dark sunglasses and carried a white cane, but he moved through the world with remarkable ease. "Diana," he said when I sat down, "thank you for meeting me." His voice was kind. That's what struck me first. Just kind. "I know this arrangement is unusual," he continued, "but I'm a practical man. I've built a successful business. I have more money than I need, and I'd like companionship. Your parents spoke highly of you. I'm not expecting love, just honesty, respect, partnership." I should have felt relieved, but instead, I felt something harder to name. Guilt, maybe, or sadness that this good man was settling for a transaction instead of romance. "I'll be honest too," I said softly. "I don't love you. I don't even know you." "I appreciate that honesty," Marcus replied. "Perhaps we can start as friends and see where life takes us." We were married 3 months later in a simple ceremony. Marcus paid off every one of my parents' debts. He bought them a new house with a roof that didn't leak. He gave them security they'd never known, and I became Mrs. Dalton, wife to a man I barely knew. The first months were strange. Marcus lived in a beautiful home on the outskirts of town, surrounded by gardens he couldn't see but loved to walk through. He'd touch the flowers, smell the roses, listen to the birds. He experienced the world differently, but no less fully. He was patient with me, thoughtful. He never pressured me, never demanded anything I wasn't ready to give. Slowly, carefully, I began to see him not as my obligation, but as a person. A good person. I started reading to him in the evenings. We'd sit in his library, and I'd read novels, poetry, news articles. He loved the sound of words, the rhythm of stories. And somewhere in those quiet evenings, something shifted in my heart. I was falling in love with my husband. Marcus had a business partner named Julian Reed. Julian had been his friend since college, the one person Marcus trusted completely with his company. Julian visited our home often, staying for dinners, bringing wine, charming us both with his stories. Julian was handsome. I noticed that, of course. Any woman would. But I was married, and increasingly happy in my marriage. Marcus had given me everything, had been nothing but good to me. Still, Julian started paying me attention in ways that made me uncomfortable. Compliments that lingered too long. Touches on my arm that felt too familiar. I pulled away, kept my distance, made my commitment clear, but Julian persisted. One afternoon, when Marcus was away on a business trip, Julian came to the house unannounced. He said he needed to pick up some documents. I let him in, trusting him. As Marcus did, that trust was a mistake. Julian made his intentions clear. He wanted me. He said Marcus would never know, could never know. He was aggressive in a way that terrified me. I told him to leave, but he grabbed my wrist. "You're wasted on a blind man," he hissed. I pulled free and ran. I locked myself in the bedroom until I heard his car drive away. My hands shook. 4 hours afterward, I wanted to tell Marcus. I should have told Marcus. But Julian had been his friend for so long, and I was afraid. Afraid Marcus wouldn't believe me. Afraid of destroying his friendship. Afraid of seeming like I was causing trouble. So I stayed silent. That silence was my second mistake. Julian became bolder. He'd make inappropriate comments when Marcus couldn't see his expression. He'd stand too close, whisper things meant only for me. I started dreading his visits, finding excuses to leave the room when he arrived. Then came the night that changed everything. Marcus had planned a surprise for me. He'd been saving for months, working with doctors I didn't know about. On our first anniversary, he took my hands and told me his secret. "Diana, I'm having surgery. There's a procedure that might restore my sight." I wanted to wait until I was sure before telling you. My heart stopped. "Marcus, that's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He smiled, but there was something sad in it. "Because I wanted to see if you'd love me anyway. If you'd stay, not out of obligation, but because you wanted to." Tears filled my eyes. "I do love you. I really do." "Then everything I see when I open my eyes will be more beautiful for it," he said. The surgery was successful beyond anyone's expectations. For the first time in 12 years, Marcus could see. He spent the first days in wonder, looking at everything, colors and shapes and light. He looked at the gardens he'd only touched, the books he'd only heard, and then he looked at me. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined," he whispered, touching my face like he was memorizing it with both sight and touch. But I saw something else in his eyes too, a sharpness, an awareness. Marcus had lived in darkness for so long that he'd learned to see people in other ways. Now he had both. It took him less than a week to notice how Julian looked at me, how I tensed when Julian entered a room, how I made excuses to avoid being alone with him. Marcus said nothing. He simply watched. Then one evening, Marcus announced he was going out of town for business. Julian would be handling things at the house. I felt panic rise in my chest, but Marcus kissed my forehead and told me not to worry. The night Marcus was supposed to be gone, Julian came to the house. He had that look in his eyes, that confidence of someone who thought he'd won. "Finally," he said, reaching for me. "I've waited long enough. Get out," I said, backing away. "I'm calling Marcus." "Marcus can't see what he can't see," Julian laughed. "Oh wait, I forgot. He can see now. But he's not here, is he?" "Actually," came Marcus's voice from the doorway. "I am." Julian spun around. Marcus stood there with a camera in his hand, the red light recording. "I've seen enough," Marcus said quietly. "I've heard enough too. Every word. Diana told me everything last week. About your harassment, your threats, your complete betrayal of our friendship." Julian's face went white. "Marcus, I can explain to security," Marcus said, "and to the police, and to the board of directors tomorrow when they vote you out of the company you tried to steal from me." I watched as Marcus called the authorities, watched as Julian was escorted out, his protests fading as he realized how completely he'd lost. The man who thought he could take everything ended up with nothing. Later that night, Marcus held me while I cried, not from fear anymore, but from relief, from gratitude, from love. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" he asked gently. "I was afraid," I admitted. "Afraid you wouldn't believe me, that I'd ruin your friendship." Marcus lifted my chin so I'd look at him. "Diana, my friendship with Julian was built on blindness in more ways than one. You are my wife, my partner, my love. There is nothing more important than that. Nothing." Years have passed now. Marcus's business thrived without Julian's poison in it. My parents are healthy and happy in their home. And Marcus and I have built a life filled with the kind of love I never expected. Sometimes Marcus tells me he's grateful for those years of blindness. They taught him to see what really matters, to value character over appearance, trust over convenience, love over transaction, and I learned that sometimes the path we think is a sacrifice becomes the greatest gift we ever received. My poor parents married me off to a rich man who was blind. But on our wedding night, something happened that no one ever saw coming. I found real love. I found a partner who saw me, truly saw me, long before his eyes could open, and that sight, that true seeing, was worth more than any amount of money could ever buy.